My name is Shirley Filson, 31 years old. If someone had asked me 5 years ago what kind of woman I wanted to become, I would have said someone who could build a loving family without ever abandoning the one that raised me. I believed those two dreams could exist together. I never imagined the man I loved would one day force me to choose between them. My father died when I was 12. After that, my mother raised me and my two sisters almost entirely on her own. She worked 2 jobs, never missed our school events, and somehow kept food on the table, lights on in the house, and love in every corner of our lives. My older sister Claire became protective. My younger sister Emma became my shadow. The three of us grew up knowing one rule. When family needs you, you show up. We still had Sunday dinners when we could. We texted in a group chat. We celebrated birthdays, helped with errands, watched each other's kids, fixed each other's broken sinks, and showed up without turning love into a transaction. We weren't unhealthy. We were close. There's a difference. When I met my boyfriend, Nathan Brooks, he said he admired that. His parents divorced when he was young, both remarried, and he spent his childhood bouncing between houses where he never fully belonged. At first, he looked at my family like we were something beautiful. I wish mine had been like this, he told me once after dinner at my mom's house. I believed him. Maybe he believed it too. We were together 4 years, living together for 2. We talked about marriage, picked out a ring, discussed venues, guest lists, future children, all of it. I thought I was building a life with him. But little by little, his admiration turned into resentment. It started small. My mom would call, and he'd sigh. Claire would send photos of her kids in the group chat, and he'd roll his eyes. After dinners, he'd make comments like, "Your mom's roast was dry," or "Emma talks too much," or "Your family really doesn't know how to give people space." None of it sounded cruel enough to end a relationship over. It just landed badly, over and over, until I started feeling nervous every time my phone lit up with my family's name. Then came the holidays. Thanksgiving became a battle because he wanted the whole day with his father. I suggested lunch with his family and dinner with mine. He said I was exhausting. Christmas morning became another fight because I wanted to keep the tradition of opening gifts with my mother. He said we needed our own traditions, which somehow always meant excluding my family. Easter, 4th of July. Claire's birthday barbecue, every event became a negotiation where I had to justify loving the people who had loved me first. Then came my mother's 70th birthday. This wasn't just a birthday, it was a milestone. Claire reserved a private room at Mom's favorite Italian restaurant. Emma made a slideshow. I handled invitations, speeches, and the custom cake. Nearly 40 relatives and family friends were coming. Nathan knew everything. He was in the planning chat. He never objected. 2 weeks before the party, we were eating dinner in our apartment when he put down his fork and said, "I'm not going to your mom's birthday." I stared at him. "What?" "I need a break from your family. This isn't just dinner, Nathan. She's turning 70. I booked us a hotel on the coast." My fork stopped halfway to my plate. "For that weekend?" "Yes, just us. We've been planning this for 4 months, and we haven't had a real vacation in almost a year. We went to your cousin's wedding 3 months ago for 4 days. That was an obligation." I sat there trying to understand how he could say it so calmly, like my mother's milestone birthday was an inconvenience he could erase with a hotel reservation. "I can't miss my mom's 70th birthday," I said. His face hardened. "Then I guess you're choosing her again." "I'm not choosing anyone." "Yes, you are." He leaned back, eyes cold. "It's either your mother's 70th birthday, or our relationship I'm not celebrating with your family again." The room went silent. For a long moment, I just looked at him. This was the man I had imagined marrying. The man who once said he wished he had a family like mine. Now he was asking me to prove my love by abandoning the woman who had given up everything for me. So I said, "I choose my family." His expression changed instantly. "What?" "You heard me. You can't be serious." "I am." He stood up, furious. "You're throwing away 4 years." "No, Nathan, you are." I walked into the bedroom and pulled out a suitcase. He followed me, telling me to stop being dramatic, telling me I'd regret this, telling me he didn't mean it like that, but he had meant it exactly like that. He had just never expected me to call his bluff. That night, I stayed at Claire's house. The next morning, I called a lawyer friend about our month-to-month lease. The landlord agreed to let us break it early, with 2 weeks' notice. Then I returned the engagement ring. I'd bought it for $4,200. The jeweler gave me $2,800 in store credit, and I used it to buy my mother the pearl necklace she had admired for years. A few days later, while Nathan was at work, Claire and Emma helped me move my things out. We touched none of his belongings. I left my key on the counter and texted him. "My things are gone. Lease ends on the 15th. Good luck." Then I moved temporarily into my mother's spare room. Nathan blew up my phone for days. First anger, then guilt, then... I didn't mean it literally. I didn't answer. I screenshotted everything. Then he started contacting my sisters. Then my mother. He told them I was making a mistake. That I was unstable. That there had been a misunderstanding. The birthday party was tomorrow, and the silence from him felt less like peace, and more like the quiet right before something breaks. The morning of my mother's birthday felt lighter than anything I'd experienced in months. For the first time in what seemed like forever, I wasn't wondering whether Nathan would complain about the restaurant, criticize the guest list, or make me choose between him and the people I loved. I woke up in my mother's house, helped her make coffee, and watched her smile without realizing what was waiting for her that evening. Claire, Emma, and I arrived at the restaurant nearly 2 hours early. The private dining room looked even better than we'd imagined. White tablecloths covered every table. Fresh flowers lined the centerpieces. Family photographs stretched across one wall, showing my mother at every stage of her life, from a young bride standing beside my father to candid pictures of her laughing with grandchildren she'd once worried she'd never live long enough to meet. Emma tested the slideshow one last time. Claire inspected the 3-tier birthday cake decorated with delicate white flowers and gold lettering that read, "Happy 70th birthday, Mom." I placed the pearl necklace inside a velvet gift box and slipped it beneath the table with the other presents. "This is going to make her cry," Emma whispered. "I hope so," I laughed. Happy tears. Guests started arriving shortly before 6. Aunts, uncles, cousins, neighbors, friends my mother had known for 30 years. By the time everyone was seated, nearly 40 people had filled the room with conversation and laughter. Then my mother walked in. She froze. Her hands flew to her mouth. "Oh my goodness!" Everyone stood and applauded. She looked completely overwhelmed as people rushed forward to hug her one after another. "I had no idea," she kept saying through happy tears. "You girls did all this?" Claire smiled. "You deserved one birthday where you didn't have to organize everything yourself." Dinner was wonderful. Stories were shared. Old family jokes resurfaced. People laughed until they cried. Around 7:30, Claire nodded toward me. It was time. I stood with my glass. The room gradually became quiet. I don't think there's anyone here who doesn't have a story about my mom helping them somehow. Soft laughter spread across the room. When Dad passed away, I was 12. I paused. My sisters and I honestly believed our world had ended. I looked toward my mother, but somehow she made sure it didn't. I talked about late-night homework, school concerts, working 2 jobs, never missing birthdays, always making us believe tomorrow would somehow be okay. By the time I finished, several relatives were wiping away tears. Even Uncle Frank, who claimed he never cried, quietly reached for a napkin. Claire spoke next. Then Emma. Each speech revealed another sacrifice our mother had made without ever asking for recognition. Finally, the lights dimmed. The slideshow began. Baby pictures, family vacations, embarrassing teenage hairstyles, wedding photos, grandchildren. Laughter echoed through the room every few seconds. Then a picture appeared of my father holding me as a newborn. The room became completely silent. My mother reached for Claire's hand. A single tear rolled down her cheek. She smiled through it. I miss him every day. None of us said anything. We simply sat beside her. That was enough. Then I heard whispering near the entrance. It spread through the room, almost like a ripple. Emma grabbed my arm. Shirley! I turned. Nathan stood in the doorway. He was wearing a navy suit. One hand held an expensive-looking gift bag. The other clutched his car keys so tightly his knuckles had turned white. He looked as though he'd been invited. As though none of the last 2 weeks had happened. Conversations stopped. Forks froze halfway to plates. Every pair of eyes followed him as he walked toward me. Shirley. His voice was quiet. Can we talk? I stared at him. Then why are you? I've been going crazy. He held out the gift bag. I brought something for your mom. I didn't even look at it. You told me you'd rather end our relationship than come to this party. I was angry. You were very clear. I didn't think you'd actually leave. There it was. The sentence that explained everything. He never believed I'd call his bluff. Around us, the room had gone completely silent. My mother looked confused. Several cousins exchanged uncomfortable glances. Nathan took another step. Please, just 5 minutes outside. I shook my head. No. I made a mistake. You called my family those people. I didn't mean it. You said you were tired of pretending to enjoy them. I was frustrated. So, now you bought a gift? His face reddened. I'm trying to fix this. Before I could answer, Claire stepped beside me. Her expression remained perfectly calm. Nathan. He looked at her. You need to leave. I'm apologizing. No. She folded her arms. You're creating another scene. I only need 5 minutes. You had 2 weeks. He looked back at me. Shirley, please. I love you. Those words landed differently now. Not because I didn't believe he'd once loved me, but because love without respect eventually becomes control. My mother slowly walked over. She wasn't angry. She wasn't shouting. She simply carried herself with the same quiet dignity she'd shown my entire life. Nathan. He turned toward her. She smiled sadly. I think it's time for you to go. I brought you a present. I appreciate the thought. She gently pushed the gift bag back toward him. But gifts don't erase choices. I never wanted to hurt you. She looked directly into his eyes. You asked my daughter to choose between her family and you. That wasn't you asked. He lowered his head. You made her believe loving us was somehow wrong. Silence. You forced a decision. She placed one hand gently on my shoulder, and she made it. Nathan's eyes filled with tears. I just wanted us to have our own life. You could have had one. My mother answered softly. You simply believed it couldn't include us. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for him. Then his expression changed. The sadness disappeared. Anger replaced it. He looked around the room. At my sisters, my aunts, my uncles, everyone standing quietly together. You people! He laughed bitterly. This isn't normal. Nobody answered. You're obsessed with each other. Still silence. It's unhealthy. Claire simply opened the dining room door. You need to leave. Nathan looked at me one last time. You're going to regret this. I met his eyes without blinking. No, I'm finally going to stop regretting staying. He stared for another few seconds before turning around. The gift bag remained on one of the empty tables. He didn't even remember to take it. The door closed behind him. For several long moments, nobody spoke. Then Uncle Frank cleared his throat dramatically. Well, he looked at the untouched birthday cake. I think 70 only comes once. The room erupted into relieved laughter. The tension dissolved almost instantly. Music started again. My mother blew out her candles. Children danced between the tables. Uncle Frank somehow convinced everyone he could sing Motown classics. He couldn't. Not even a little. But everyone applauded anyway. Near the end of the evening, after most guests had left, my mother found me standing outside the restaurant. She wrapped her arms around me. "I'm sorry." I frowned. For what? That today became harder than it needed to. I hugged her back. "It wasn't your fault." "I know." She smiled gently. "But I'm still sorry." I looked through the restaurant window. Claire and Emma were laughing while packing leftover cake. Our cousins were helping load decorations. My family, exactly where they had always been. I think today proved something. What? I made the right choice. She kissed my forehead. "I've always been proud of you." 3 days passed. Nathan never apologized again. Instead, his messages changed. They became colder, sharper. According to him, I had humiliated him in front of 40 people. I had turned my entire family against him. I still refused to answer. Then mutual friends started calling. One quietly asked, "Is it true your family forced you to leave him?" Another asked, "Did you really kick Nathan out without warning?" I realized he had already begun rewriting our story. In his version, I wasn't the woman who refused an ultimatum. I was the daughter who couldn't escape her controlling family. I simply told each person exactly what had happened. Nothing more. Nothing less. Most believed me almost immediately. The ones who hesitated didn't really know either of us. Then, just when I thought the worst was finally behind me, Nathan crossed a line I never imagined he would. I thought the birthday party had been the final chapter. I was wrong. About a week later, my phone rang while I was at work. It was my supervisor. "Shirley, do you have a few minutes?" His tone wasn't angry. It was cautious. Of course. When I walked into his office, he closed the door and turned his monitor toward me. "I received an email this morning." He clicked it open. The sender's name made my stomach tighten. Nathan Brooks. The subject line read, "Concern regarding employee behavior." I kept reading. Nathan claimed I had become emotionally unstable after our breakup. He wrote that I had been acting irrationally, making threats, and that he felt obligated to warn my employer in case I became a danger in the workplace. He presented himself as someone who was simply concerned about my well-being. Every sentence was a lie. My supervisor watched my face. "I'm assuming none of this is true." I looked up. Not one word. What actually happened? So I told him everything. The birthday, the ultimatum, the breakup, the party he crashed, the constant texts, the messages to my sisters, the attempts to manipulate my mother. Without interrupting me, my supervisor listened from beginning to end. Then I opened a folder on my phone. I've documented everything. Screenshots, call logs, photos from the birthday party, the text where Nathan admitted he didn't think I'd actually leave, copies of every message he'd sent after I moved out. He slowly nodded. "This makes things very clear." Then he surprised me. I'm responding to him. "You are?" "Absolutely." He leaned back in his chair. "I'm informing him that contacting an employee's workplace over a personal relationship is completely inappropriate. I'll also copy Human Resources so we have a formal record. If he contacts anyone here again, we'll treat it as harassment." Relief washed over me. "I was afraid you'd believe him." He smiled. "Shirley, you've worked here for 4 years. We know who you are." That single sentence nearly made me cry. That afternoon, I called the same lawyer who had helped me with the lease. After reviewing everything, he was blunt. "He's escalating. What can we do?" "The first step is a cease and desist letter." He explained that Nathan's behavior had moved far beyond an emotional breakup. Between repeatedly contacting me, reaching out to my family, crashing a private event, spreading false stories, and now contacting my employer with fabricated claims, there was already a documented pattern of harassment. 2 days later, the letter was delivered. It listed every incident in chronological order: the repeated texts, the calls, the messages to Claire, the messages to Emma, the message to my mother. The uninvited appearance at my mother's birthday, the false statements to mutual friends, the email to my workplace. It demanded that Nathan immediately stop contacting me, my family, and my employer. It also warned that any future contact could result in legal action. He never responded to my lawyer. Instead, he sent me one final text. "I can't believe you're threatening me with lawyers after everything I did for you. You're the one who abandoned me. You're the one who embarrassed me in front of everyone. I hope your precious family was worth it because you just lost the only person who ever truly loved you." I stared at the screen for several seconds. Months earlier, those words would have devastated me. Now they only confirmed what I already knew. Someone who truly loves you never demands proof by asking you to betray the people who have loved you your entire life. I took one last screenshot, forwarded it to my lawyer, blocked Nathan's number. That was the last direct message I ever received from him. Days passed, then weeks. Silence. Real silence. Not the tense silence before another argument. The peaceful kind. Living with my mother turned out to be surprisingly comforting. She respected my space. I helped cook dinner, did yard work on weekends, and slowly started feeling like myself again. Claire visited almost every Sunday. Emma insisted on helping me search for apartments even though I told her I could manage. "We're helping anyway," she laughed. "That's what sisters do." The people who mattered never questioned my decision. The mutual friends sorted themselves out. Those who believed Nathan without ever asking my side quietly disappeared from my life. The ones who reached out to hear the truth apologized. One even admitted, "The moment I heard he contacted your job, I realized something wasn't right." The pearl necklace became my favorite reminder that endings sometimes create unexpected beginnings. My mother wore it everywhere. Church, lunch with friends, family dinners. Whenever someone complimented it, she'd smile proudly. My daughter gave it to me for my 70th birthday. A few weeks later, something happened that I never expected. I received a phone call from Nathan's mother. We had only met a handful of times over the years. She lived several states away and wasn't especially close to her son. I almost didn't answer. "I'm sorry to bother you, Shirley." Her voice sounded tired. "I just wanted to apologize." "You don't owe me an apology." "I know," she sighed, "but I still feel responsible." There was a long pause. "He's always been like this." "What do you mean?" "When he doesn't get his way." She hesitated. Everything becomes all or nothing. She admitted that Nathan had spent years giving people impossible ultimatums until they eventually surrendered, simply because arguing with him was exhausting. His father had enabled it. She had enabled it too. It was easier than fighting. I thought he'd outgrown it. I guess he didn't. She quietly told me that Nathan wasn't doing well. He had moved back in with his father. He wasn't working consistently. He spent most of his time blaming everyone else for the breakup. "I'm not asking you to forgive him. I'm certainly not asking you to take him back. I just wanted you to know that not everyone in his family believes what he did was acceptable." When the conversation ended, I felt something I hadn't expected. Closure. Not because Nathan had changed, but because I finally understood that this wasn't something I had caused. It wasn't something I could have fixed. After discussing everything with my lawyer, I decided not to pursue additional legal action unless Nathan contacted me again. The cease and desist had done exactly what it was supposed to do. It established a boundary. One he finally respected. A month later, I signed the lease on a small one-bedroom apartment about 15 minutes from my mother's house. Close enough for Sunday dinners, far enough to build my own future. Moving day felt strangely familiar. Claire carried boxes. Emma complained that I owned too many books. My mother insisted on making lasagna because, according to her, nobody should unpack on an empty stomach. That evening, after everyone left, I sat alone in my new living room, surrounded by unopened boxes. For the first time in months, everything was quiet. I thought about what would have happened if I'd gone to the coast with Nathan instead of celebrating my mother's birthday. We probably would have stayed together. We might have planned a wedding, maybe even bought a house. But every compromise would have made the next one easier. Skip one birthday, miss one holiday, ignore one family dinner. Eventually, I wouldn't have recognized the woman staring back at me in the mirror. Nathan believed 4 years together, an engagement ring, and a shared apartment were enough to make me abandon my family. He believed love meant choosing him over everyone else. He was wrong. My mother celebrated her 70th birthday, surrounded by people who truly loved her. She laughed, she cried, she danced to old Motown songs. She wore the pearl necklace I bought with the money from a ring that no longer represented my future. And every time I remember that night, I don't think about the relationship that ended. I think about the life I refused to lose. Sometimes people say that real love means putting your partner above everyone else. I disagree. Real love never asks you to sacrifice the people who have spent a lifetime proving they would never ask you to choose. I chose my family. In the end, I also chose myself.